Good morning and welcome to the Bad Apple Report. It's 7:30 a.m. bright and early right here at home on the range, and thank you guys so much for being here. We're going to start the show out today with she turned into a model, and she was a cop, but she decided to go into the modeling business because she was so, I know, I was thinking the same thing. What are you, a foot model? Jeez. Dang. So this ex-cop turned model among duo arrested. A former police officer turned Instagram model is among two women recently arrested for allegedly working together to extort $9,000 from a small cosmetology business. Oh, man. Cops. Okay. Tucson is a former deputy for the Orange County Sheriff's Office. Those Orange County knuckleheads. According to prosecutors, and more recently worked as a police officer in the town of Woodbury. Woodbury Police Chief Kevin Watson says she resigned in 2021. In 2022, Tucson was interviewed for the Off-Duty podcast, of course, in an episode titled I Thrive in Chaos, when she was a nominee for a Maxim Magazine 2022 cover girl. Are we talking about the same chick here? Yeesh. Okay. All right. According to the Orange County Sheriff's Office, the duo threatened to report fictitious violations to the New York State Board of Cosmetology and file complaints with the Department of Labor for alleged employee violations against the business that were untrue. What a bunch of... Am I right? Come on, let's call it like we see it, you guys. Allegedly. Both were charged by the Orange County White-Collar Crimes Task Force with grand larceny and coercion. Ooh, she's in trouble. And were released on an appearance ticket. Oh, they're going to be watching the Bad Apple Report. She's going to be like, I'm not so ugly. Yes, you are. You're ugly on the inside and you're ugly on the outside. Look at you. Ex-cop turned model. Foot model. Am I right? And here is a fresh update on that super corrupt sheriff. I know you're like, oh, that really narrows it down. Well, listen, it's the one that really gets under that judge's skin.
All these luxuries and all the money that you've allegedly taken, I'm thinking about $1.5 million in bond ought to be appropriate. You should be able to post that with no problems with it.
Strong words there from a Southern Indiana judge today, pointed at the former Clark County Sheriff Jamie Knoll. Jamie Knoll now has a $1.5 million bond and 6 new felony charges. The former Clark County Sheriff was in court today. With the new charges, he is now facing in total 31 felonies.
Judge Larry Medlock on the bench again there today. The probable cause affidavit said the new 6 charges were related to information that had come out since February. This information had not resulted in any new charges just yet.
Focus reporter Travis Breeze and photojournalist Jessica Farley were in the courtroom. They have all sides of that heated exchange.
The defense said it had not been given enough time to fully respond to the new charges and said it was a bad precedent to set a new bond without fully proving the evidence in these new charges. But Judge Medlock said he felt he had been deceived now twice by Mr. Knoll, and he set a bond in accordance with his feelings.
Mr. Knoll, how do we wish to enter our plea this matter?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
Knoll pleaded not guilty to 6 felonies Tuesday relating to cars, HVAC systems, lawnmowers, and more, allegedly purchased using either sheriff's office funds or his volunteer fire department credit cards. The state argued it was fair to set a new bond because this evidence wasn't previously considered.
Based on his actions since November, the state believes that it certainly needs to be elevated at the court's discretion.
It sets a bad precedent, and it's bad policy to allow that to occur because at this point, any prosecutor in the state of Indiana can file initial charges, wait a little bit, see if they like what the court's order is on bail, potentially defendant posts, file new charges.
The state believes Knoll used the credit cards up until the end of March, and an argument broke out in the courtroom about if he still has access to them.
He said anybody who wanted to answer. I'm trying to answer.
Your Honor, I do not believe that at any point the court says anybody that wants to answer includes anybody sitting around that may or may not have a law degree.
Heather Peters, the lawyer for Utica Township Volunteer Firefighters Association, took the stand as a court's witness. She said they have closed the largest account, but cannot close a smaller one. She admitted multiple people outside of the Knoll family could access the American Express account. All the while, Judge Larry Medlock sat and listened. In the end, he seemed to set a bond considering all evidence in the case.
Stable of exotic motor vehicles, a harem of women, at least 3 mansions, at least $3,000 suits, $800 belts, which you get personally delivered. And still seem to think that the Utica Volunteer Fire Department's your personal piggy bank. I'm thinking about $1.5 million in bond ought to be appropriate.
In Jeffersonville, Travis Breeze, WHAS 11 on your side.
Well, if I had anything to say to that sheriff, it would be, hey, look on the bright side, buddy. At least you don't have to worry about gout anymore. Am I right? I don't know. Maybe they serve fine food in prison nowadays. Possibly. Okay, this next sheriff, I don't know if he's going to do prison time, but he definitely has a federal civil lawsuit on his hands in this case.
St. Croix County and its sheriff are facing legal action on how services were ended between the county and an area towing company. Thanks for choosing News 18. I'm Shannon Hoyt. It's a case that started more than a year ago and is connected to the murder of Deputy Katie Lysing. Katrina Lim has the story.
Mike's Auto Body of Glenwood City LLC and its owner Michael Barstead are suing St. Croix County and Sheriff Scott Knutson in a civil rights action federal lawsuit. The complaint was filed earlier this month. In it, Barstead claims the sheriff violated his First and 14th Amendment rights when Knutson terminated his auto body's participation in the county's no-preference towing rotation. This is when deputies arranged for the removal of disabled vehicles from roads in the county by private towing services, like Mike's Auto Body. According to the lawsuit, this case goes back a year, to the day Deputy Katie Lysing was murdered. Barstead's company was called to tow a vehicle from the scene. Cut to 6 days later, the owner picked up the car, but the DOJ didn't want to pay the bill in full. That prompted Barstead to send an email to his fellow towing operators. Quote, "I am beyond pissed. I am sick of most of this stuff with the sheriff and the government. Either they don't do anything with the bills for years and years, or then we have to discount bills as if it is our problem." That email made its way to the sheriff and prompted this reply. "You have crossed such a line of humanity choosing this incident to blast me, this office, and those involved with this investigation that I will be moving towards dissolving the towing agreement."
We understand the sheriff was under a lot of pressure when he made this decision. Anybody can have a bad day, and we're prepared to be reasonable. We've kind of got the county over a barrel legally, I think.
Civil rights attorney Jeff Olson sees a clear violation of his client's rights. He says if you have a First Amendment right to engage in communication, you have a right to not be retaliated against by the government for it. He also says the sheriff violated Barstead's due process rights under the 14th Amendment. Olson says there are requirements to be on the towing rotation. If the sheriff takes someone off, the county must give them a hearing on whether they failed to comply with any of those terms, and no hearing happened. We reached out to the sheriff's office and corporation counsel. They didn't respond to the lawsuit directly, but said they are instead focusing on honoring Katie's memory.
That was Katrina Lim reporting. The county has 60 days to file an answer to the complaint. If no settlement is reached, Olson expects a trial will be scheduled for a year and a half from today.
Our last story this morning is a really bad apple. And of course, he brought down a couple of bad apples around him. You know how that is. They spoil the whole bunch.
3 of the top cops at the Atlanta VA Medical Center are suspended from police duty with pay amid allegations of unacceptable behavior.
The VA cited multiple complaints, including one involving graphic details of an assault by the deputy police chief. Yet Fox 5 I-Team reporter Randy Travis says for years that deputy chief stayed on the job until now. Randy?
That's right, Courtney and Russ. The police department, the VA, provides law enforcement and security services at the main hospital in Decatur and several other VA clinics in Metro Atlanta. They also use a private security company to carry some of the load. Shanika Jackson once worked for both. How soon after you got the job did you start having some issues with the deputy chief?
I noticed he was overly friendly with me. He would be standing behind me a lot, and I'm like, why is he always in here? Doesn't he have anything else to do?
A single mom and retired Air Force military police officer, Shanika Jackson applied to join the Atlanta VA Police Department in 2021. But after working months in dispatch, waiting for a slot to open for mandatory police academy training, she said she had to resign because the pandemic kept delaying the start of the class. According to the EEOC complaint she would eventually file, Jackson said Deputy Police Chief Johnny McColour offered to help her get a job with the private security company at the Atlanta VA. An offer she says in her complaint she was unaware came with some strings attached.
I just remember one day he asked me to come into his office. He just told me, like, I told you it would cost you.
According to that complaint, the deputy chief exposed himself and encouraged Jackson to take part in a sexual act.
I'm like, whoa, 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 like this is not something I'm gonna do. But I got out of his office so quick. I remember seeing him adjust his pants back, and I got out of there and I started crying hysterically.
Two friends confirmed to EEOC investigators that Jackson confided in them shortly after the incident. But Jackson said she did not file an official complaint immediately.
But I was fearful at the time because he had a lot of power.
But then came a misdirected text in January 2022. Thinking she was texting a friend, Jackson says she accidentally sent this to McColour. Snakes only get so far. In her complaint, she says McColour went to her boss and asked that she be fired.
I told him, like, hey, this man has been harassing me for the longest, and y'all are trying to fire me for him.
She was ultimately demoted and transferred. When she failed to show up for work, the private security company fired her. They denied McColour played any role in the decision. Only after she was fired in April 2022 did Jackson file her complaint with the EEOC. And when McColour met with EEOC investigators, he denied every one of Jackson's claims. So, she said it happened, he said it did not. Jackson's EEOC complaint was dismissed before either had a chance to prove they were telling the truth. She's filed an appeal. But there's a third angle to this she said, he said story. It's what the VA Internal Affairs investigation said. In July 2022, the VA's Office of Senior Security Officer conducted its own investigation into Jackson's claims. The Fox 5i team obtained this copy through the Freedom of Information Act. After interviewing multiple witnesses, it was repeated throughout interviews that McColour had a romantic interest in Jackson. The report said McColour admitted to special agents that he gave Jackson money, texted her outside of working hours because he wanted to help Jackson as a single parent, a statement investigators find not credible. And as far as Jackson's allegation of McColour exposing himself, staff described him as vindictive, condescending, toxic, and as having a reputation as a womanizer. Investigators did draw certain conclusions that would support Jackson's reports as being accurate and truthful. So you must have been pretty pleased to see this report.
Absolutely.
Did you expect that this would result in him being removed from his job?
I did.
He was not. We shot this video a few months ago of McColour at a firearms training course with Police Chief Beverly Banks. The VA suspended Chief Banks, Deputy Chief McColour, and a third person due to employee complaints and allegations of unacceptable behavior, including allegations of sexual assault and harassment. We are treating these allegations with the utmost seriousness and are moving aggressively to investigate them, and will take swift and appropriate action. Reached by phone, McColour said he had no comment. Chief Banks did not respond to our questions. The VA has already appointed an acting chief and an acting deputy chief, and they say that they're sending a national team, including the senior security officer, to make recommendations for the three who are currently suspended with pay.
Wow.
As always, thank you for spending part of your morning with me watching the Bad Apple Report right here at home on the range. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day. You made my day. I hope you have an awesome day, and I'll see you right here tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. bright and early.